The first few weeks after Lily was born should have been the happiest time of Emma Carter's life. In many ways, they were. Every morning, she woke to the soft sounds of her newborn daughter stretching and yawning. Every night, she sat beside the nursery window, rocking Lily while watching the moonlight spill across the room. But happiness had arrived alongside sacrifice. Emma's husband, Jake, had been deployed overseas with his military unit just 3 weeks after Lily's birth. The goodbye had been one of the hardest moments of their marriage. Standing at the airport, holding their tiny daughter while Jake kissed them both goodbye, Emma had promised she would stay strong until he returned. She intended to keep that promise. The small house felt emptier without him. His laughter no longer echoed through the hallways. His boots no longer sat by the front door, yet reminders of him remained everywhere, especially in Lily's nursery. The centerpiece of the room was a beautiful white crib. To anyone else, it looked simple, but to Emma, it represented months of love, planning, and hope. Money had been tight during the pregnancy. Between medical bills and preparing for Jake's deployment, every dollar mattered. They couldn't afford expensive nursery furniture, so Jake spent evenings searching online for affordable options. Eventually, they found a sturdy crib they could manage within their budget. When the large box arrived, Jake had treated it like a special project. For an entire weekend, he assembled it piece by piece. Emma still remembered him sitting on the nursery floor, surrounded by tools and instruction manuals, pretending to be frustrated whenever a screw didn't fit correctly. Military training never prepared me for baby furniture, he joked. By Sunday evening, the crib stood proudly in the corner of the room. But Jake wasn't finished. Using leftover wood from his workshop, he carefully carved a small heart-shaped plaque. On it, he engraved Lily's name by hand. It wasn't perfect. The letters were slightly uneven, but that made it more meaningful. When he attached the wooden heart to the crib rail, Emma burst into tears. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jake smiled. Now she'll always know her dad made something just for her. That memory became one of Emma's most treasured possessions after he deployed. Unfortunately, not everyone shared her happiness. Jake's mother, Diane, had never fully accepted Emma. From the day Jake introduced them, Diane found reasons to criticize her. Emma was too independent, too career-focused, too stubborn. According to Diane, no woman serving in the National Guard could possibly be a proper wife and mother. The comments never stopped. "You should be home with your child. Jake deserves someone who puts family first. A real mother wouldn't leave her baby." Emma usually remained silent. Fighting only made things worse. She endured the insults because she loved Jake and didn't want to create conflict within the family. But Diane's bitterness seemed to grow stronger every year. One Friday afternoon, Emma received notice that she was required to attend a mandatory weekend drill. Missing it wasn't an option. Panic immediately set in. Her usual babysitter was unavailable. Most of her friends were working. After several desperate phone calls, only one person remained: Diane. When Emma asked for help, her mother-in-law hesitated before agreeing. "I suppose I can watch Lily for a day," Diane said coldly. Relieved, Emma thanked her repeatedly. The next morning, before leaving for drill, Emma carefully explained Lily's routine. Then she paused at the nursery door. "Please don't move anything in here," she said gently. "Lily sleeps best in her crib." Diane glanced toward the nursery. A strange smile crossed her face. "Oh, don't worry," she replied. Emma couldn't explain why, but the smile made her uneasy. As she drove away toward the military base, a knot formed in her stomach. For the rest of the day, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Back at the house, Diane stood alone in Lily's nursery, staring silently at the white crib. Her expression slowly hardened. And before the day was over, she would make a decision that would change everything. The entire day at drill, Emma struggled to concentrate. Normally, military training helped clear her mind. The structured routines, the teamwork, and the familiar commands always gave her a sense of purpose. But today was different. Again and again, her thoughts drifted back to Lily. She found herself checking her phone during every break, hoping for an update. There were no messages from Diane, no photos, no calls. Most people would have considered that a good sign. Emma wasn't so sure. The uneasy feeling she'd experienced that morning refused to disappear. By the time drill finally ended, she was exhausted and eager to get home. She practically ran to her car and began the drive back. As she pulled into her driveway, she immediately noticed something strange. The garage door was open. Diane's car was gone. The front door was unlocked. Emma frowned. That wasn't like Diane. Carrying her equipment bag over one shoulder, she hurried inside. The house was unusually quiet. "Lily," she called softly. A small cry came from the living room. Relieved, Emma followed the sound and found her daughter lying in a portable playpen. Lily wasn't hurt, but she wasn't where she was supposed to be either. Emma picked her up immediately and kissed her forehead. "Mommy's here." The baby settled instantly against her chest. Then Emma noticed something else. The nursery door stood wide open. Her heart began beating faster. For reasons she couldn't explain, she suddenly felt afraid. Still holding Lily, she walked toward the room. The moment she stepped through the doorway, she froze. The crib was gone. For several seconds, her mind refused to process what she was seeing. The corner where the crib had stood was completely empty. The mattress was missing. The blankets were gone. Even the mobile hanging above it had disappeared. Only faint marks on the floor remained. Emma blinked several times. Surely she was mistaken. Surely the crib had simply been moved. But where? Diane. Her voice echoed through the house. A moment later, her mother-in-law appeared from the kitchen carrying a cup of coffee. "What?" Diane asked casually. Emma pointed toward the empty nursery. "Where is Lily's crib?" Diane took a sip from her cup. Then she shrugged. "I threw it away." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. "You? What?" "I got rid of it." Emma stared at her in disbelief. "You threw away our crib." Diane rolled her eyes as if discussing something completely insignificant. "It was old, cheap too." Emma felt her hands trembling. "That wasn't yours to throw away." "It looked terrible," Diane replied. "Honestly, the room looks much better without it." Emma could barely breathe. Jake built that crib. For the first time, Diane's expression shifted slightly. But not to guilt, to annoyance. "It's just furniture, Emma." "No," Emma whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "It wasn't." Without another word, she rushed outside carrying Lily. A terrible possibility had entered her mind. The neighborhood dumpster sat near the end of the street. As she approached, her heart sank. There it was. Broken pieces of white wood lay piled beside the trash container. Rain from an earlier shower soaked the remains. Emma felt sick. The crib hadn't simply been discarded. It had been destroyed. Several rails had been snapped in half. The mattress had been ripped, and among the wreckage she found the small wooden heart Jake had carved. The heart with Lily's name, cracked directly down the middle. Emma dropped to her knees. Tears streamed down her face. She gently picked up the broken pieces. The pain wasn't about money. A replacement crib could be purchased. But Jake's hand, carved gift could never be replaced. As she sat there crying, a voice spoke behind her. "Are you Emma?" She turned and saw her elderly neighbor, Mr. Henderson. The retired veteran looked deeply troubled. "I saw what happened this afternoon," he said quietly. Emma wiped her tears. What do you mean, Mr. Henderson glanced toward the broken crib. Your mother-in-law brought it out herself. Emma's stomach dropped. She didn't just throw it away, he continued. I watched her break pieces off before she dragged it here. Emma stared at him in shock. The destruction had been intentional, every broken board, every shattered piece, every ruined memory. And suddenly, her heartbreak began turning into something else, something stronger. For years, she had tolerated Diane's cruelty. But this time, Diane had gone too far, and she had no idea that someone had witnessed everything. Emma barely slept that night. After putting Lily to bed in a borrowed bassinet from a neighbor, she sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the broken wooden heart Jake had carved. She had carefully gathered every piece she could find from the dumpster and placed them in a small box. The crack running through Lily's name felt like a crack running through her own heart. Again and again, she replayed Diane's words. It's just furniture. No, it had never been just furniture. It was one of the last things Jake had built before leaving for deployment. It carried memories that couldn't be replaced with money. The following Monday, Emma reported for another National Guard training session. She arrived early, hoping work would distract her from everything that had happened. Instead, her exhaustion followed her onto the training field. During drills, she missed instructions. During exercises, she struggled to focus. Normally one of the strongest soldiers in her unit, Emma seemed distant and distracted. Someone noticed. Captain Daniel Reynolds had commanded the unit for years. He was known for being demanding but fair. More importantly, he genuinely cared about the soldiers under his leadership. After training ended, he approached Emma. Private Carter. Emma straightened immediately. Sir, Captain Reynolds studied her face. You've been somewhere else all day. Emma attempted a smile. I'm fine, sir. The captain raised an eyebrow. No, you're not. For a moment, Emma considered repeating the lie. Then the weight of the past few days became too much. She followed him into his office. Once the door closed, Captain Reynolds spoke gently. Tell me what's going on. The words opened a floodgate. Emma told him everything. She explained Jake's deployment, the months spent saving for the crib, the hand, carved heart, Diane's years of insults and manipulation, and finally the destruction of Lily's crib. By the time she finished, tears filled her eyes again. Captain Reynolds listened without interrupting. When she was done, he leaned back in his chair. His expression had grown serious. Your neighbor witnessed this. Yes, sir. Did he give you a statement? He offered to. Captain Reynolds nodded slowly. Then he surprised her. I may already know the witness. Emma frowned. What? The captain opened a folder on his desk. Mr. Henderson, right. Her eyes widened. Yes. Captain Reynolds smiled slightly. Retired Army Sergeant Major Thomas Henderson. Emma stared at him. You know him. We served together years ago. For the first time all week, Emma felt a small sense of hope. Captain Reynolds reached for his phone. After a brief call, he hung up and turned back toward her. Mr. Henderson has something important. What is it? The captain folded his hands. Security camera footage. Emma blinked. Footage. He installed cameras after several vehicle thefts in the neighborhood. Her heart began racing. You're saying he recorded everything? Captain Reynolds nodded. Everything. The next day, Emma met with Mr. Henderson. Together they reviewed the footage. The video was crystal clear. There was Diane carrying pieces of the crib outside. There was Diane striking one of the rails against the pavement. There was Diane snapping wooden slats in half before dragging the remains toward the dumpster. The destruction wasn't accidental. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Emma felt anger building inside her. But for the first time, she also felt validation. She wasn't imagining the cruelty. The evidence was undeniable. Later that afternoon, Captain Reynolds connected her with legal resources available to military families. An attorney reviewed the situation, the witness statements, the photographs, the video, everything. The attorney's response was immediate. This is property destruction. Emma sat silently. For years, she had allowed Diane to cross boundaries because she wanted peace. She had accepted criticism, accepted insults, accepted disrespect, but seeing the evidence changed something inside her. Captain Reynolds looked across the table. Standing up for yourself isn't creating conflict, Emma. She met his gaze. It's protecting your family. For the first time since the crib was destroyed, Emma felt stronger. Not because the damage could be undone. It couldn't, but because the truth was finally visible. And soon, Diane would discover that her actions had consequences. Consequences she never saw coming. For the first time in years, Diane was nervous. The confident woman who had spent years criticizing Emma suddenly found herself sitting across from an attorney and a mediator, facing evidence she couldn't explain away. The witness statement from Sergeant Major Henderson was detailed and clear. The photographs showed the damaged crib, and the security footage left no room for excuses. Emma sat quietly throughout the meeting, holding a folder in her lap. She wasn't there for revenge in the way Diane expected. She wasn't interested in yelling, humiliating, or attacking anyone. She simply wanted accountability. Diane, however, continued searching for ways to avoid responsibility. It was an old crib, she argued. I was trying to help. The mediator paused the video on the moment Diane deliberately smashed one of the crib rails against the pavement. Can you explain this? He asked calmly. Diane's face turned red. For several seconds, she had no answer. Because there wasn't one, the truth was obvious. She hadn't acted out of concern. She had acted out of spite. By the end of the meeting, Diane was ordered to compensate Emma for the destroyed property and sentimental damage. While no amount of money could replace Jake's handmade gift, the official ruling sent a powerful message. Her actions had consequences. For years, Diane had believed she could do whatever she wanted without being challenged. Not anymore, yet the sweetest part of the story came several weeks later. Jake finally returned home. Emma had counted down the days on a calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. Every crossed-out square brought her closer to the moment she would see her husband again. When he walked through the airport doors, she burst into tears. Lily giggled from Emma's arms as Jake wrapped them both in a hug. For a few minutes, nothing else mattered. Not Diane, not the crib, not the legal battles, only family. That evening, after Lily had fallen asleep, Emma told Jake everything, every detail, the babysitting arrangement. The empty nursery, the broken crib, the witness statements, the footage. Jake listened silently. His expression grew darker with each passing minute. Finally, Emma showed him the video. The room became completely silent. Jake watched his mother destroy the crib he had built with his own hands. He watched the wooden heart shatter. He watched months of love being thrown into the trash. When the video ended, Jake lowered his head. For several moments, he didn't speak. Then he looked at Emma. I'm sorry. Emma blinked. You didn't do anything. I should have protected you from this years ago. The next day, Jake met with Diane. The conversation was short. For the first time in his life, he refused to make excuses for her behavior. When Diane tried blaming Emma, Jake stopped her immediately. No, Mom. The disappointment in his voice hurt more than any argument. You crossed a line. Diane expected him to forgive her. Instead, Jake informed her that she would no longer have unrestricted access to their home or their family. Trust had been broken, and rebuilding it would take time. Months later, something beautiful happened. Members of Emma's National Guard unit learned what had occurred. Quietly, they organized a surprise. One soldier built the frame, another painted it. Several others contributed decorations and bedding. Even Captain Reynolds participated. On a sunny Saturday morning, they delivered a handcrafted crib to Emma in Jake's home. Attached to the side was a polished wooden plaque. Emma immediately recognized the handwriting. Captain Reynolds had carved the words himself. Built stronger than what was broken, tears filled Emma's eyes, not tears of sadness, tears of gratitude. Diane had tried to destroy a symbol of love. Instead, her actions revealed who truly cared. The new crib stood proudly in Lily's nursery, surrounded by people who supported and respected the family. Years later, whenever Emma looked at that crib, she remembered an important lesson. Cruel people may break things. They may damage memories. They may cause pain, but they cannot destroy genuine love. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's building a happier life, stronger than ever, while refusing to let their bitterness define your future.